And we welcome you back to Real Training Camp on NBA TV. Vince Cellini and Mike Fratello. We're on the Florida Panhandle, Hurlburt Field, Eglin Air Force Base, Fort Walton Beach, Florida. This is the final night for the Miami Heat in their training camp, and they're doing it with two 20-minute halves of scrimmaging. And Mike, we want to talk a little bit about the staff. In particular, we'll start with Erik Spoelstra, who's been with this team a long, long time, 16 years for a young guy, third year as head coach. He's never seen anything like this.
You talk about working your way up the ladder. Started out in the film room, the video coordinator for Miami, and then became one of the scouts, and then started putting game plans and the preparations for their opponents together for Pat Riley and Stan Van Gundy. And then, for the last 7 years prior to him becoming the head coach, he was the main guy that formulated their game plans for their opponents. And then when he was named head coach, he will now enter third season as the Heat's head coach, and he's just done an outstanding job. This guy pays attention to detail, doesn't miss a thing in their preparation for their upcoming opponents. He's a great teacher. The players got to know him best because he was the person that Pat Riley put in charge of their player development program. All the ball handling skill stuff that they did in the offseason, Erik Spoelstra was the one that did it with them. And then all of a sudden he becomes the head coach, so they have great respect for his knowledge and teaching ability.
Well, they do, and Wade and Haslam both have a history with him, Erik Spoelstra. What about the other players, and how do you approach this as a head coach in terms of being a disciplinarian, but at the same time, you have superstar players here, and you can't be too much of an, excuse the expression, a hard ass for these guys. You want their respect. You don't want to push too much. You want to give some freedom as well. I guess you walk a fine line.
There are guidelines that are put in place. It certainly helps you as a head coach when your best players adhere to the guidelines. Just for example, being on time. Okay, that's a respect. It's a respect for your staff. It's respect for your teammates. It's a respect for the game. So if your best guys are always on time, they're never late for practice, why should anyone else be late for practice? And that kind of like goes with establishing a program and here's what we do here in Miami. That's what the new guys who just showed up, that's what they heard from people like Dwayne Wade, like Bob McAdoo, like Keith Askins, two of the assistant coaches who have been there for years now with Pat Riley, with Van Gundy, with Spoelstra. We do it this way in Miami, and we've won championships doing it.
Well, Spoelstra has talked about players trusting the process. This is all part of a process. Let's go day to day. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I think when a team is pegged for greatness, you can't help but get ahead of yourself in terms of what milestones they may be crossing and where they may be venturing as a team from a historic perspective. So how do you manage all of that? I mean, maybe that's the same question I just asked you, but in terms of just the media peppering you every night with this team, the expectations, there hasn't been anything like this.
The process that you're talking about that Erik Spoelstra mentioned is taking steps. You have to take steps along the way to get where you're trying to get to eventually. Your defense isn't going to be great early, but eventually by doing the drill work, the breakdown work, the 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, by doing those types of things, then you get to the end of the process, down the road somewhere. Who knows how many games it'll take before it all clicks in. It might be 20 games, it might be 30 games. What you care about is that it keeps getting better and better, and it's where you want it to be at the end of the season.
Okay, Mike, as a head coach, how important is your staff around you for support?
I've always told people that have called me and asked for advice, in hiring their staff, don't pick your best friends. Pick people that can help you in particular areas. Pick people that have an enthusiasm and a zest for the game, love the game of basketball, love teaching it. People that don't worry about the clock. How much time have I been here? People that just want to help basketball players develop and get better and help your team win games. And Erik Spoelstra has a terrific staff here. 3 of them have been here a long time, and that's Ronnie Rothstein, who was the original Miami Heat coach. He came back under Pat Riley as an assistant, and Stan Van Gundy. And then Bob McAdoo, great player, Hall of Famer, and Keith Askins, all part of this Miami organization for many years.
We see LeBron James still revving it up. 37-23, the white team out in front. Let's take another look at LeBron here going to the basket.
Well, at least the white team didn't shut the red team out defensively. A little movement without the ball. LeBron, one of the better players in the league at moving without the basketball. And that's something you like to see. Just by moving without it, backdooring your defensive player, you wind up with an easy layup.
You know, Mike, something we talked about, and it's kind of a fun thing. You and I were talking about the physical appearance of LeBron James, in particular, LeBron's feet. And you're not the first person that I've heard talk about this. And there you go. See how those toes point outward? Ordinarily, not supposed to be a good thing for an athlete.
You see many athletes that are pigeon-toed, actually, where the toes are turned in a little bit. LeBron, just different. When he walks and the top part of his foot points out a little bit. And then when you watch him run and jump and the explosiveness does, you go, well, his feet can go anywhere they want when he runs and jumps like he does.
I think it works for LeBron. But again, new guy here for LeBron, and although he's the reigning two-time MVP, I think he has a statement to make, as we mentioned, for the outsiders and for the fellows on his team as well. And he has been all business tonight. I mean, he looks very, very strong.
He probably has a goal set in his head that he would like to win every drill and practice and win every inter-squad scrimmage, whatever team he's put on, so that he can say to the team at the end, this is what I expect out of all of us. And when we go out and try and win as many games as we can possibly win this year, he did it by example. And they know what team he's on. When this little 20-minute segment stops and they switch the teams around, they realize what team he was on, just like they did when they didn't have to run at the end of the drills in practice, because his team won all the 3-on-3, 4-on-4 competitions.
He wrote on Twitter, "The road to history starts now," did LeBron James. And he said, this isn't a gel year. These guys want a title. Ordinarily, do you get a gel year when you establish a new team? Or does this thing just break all the rules?
I think Pat Riley really made the statement by who he surrounded the big three with, meaning the other players that he brought in, guys like Mike Miller, like Zydrunas Ilgauskas, veteran guys that have been around. You know, they all want to win. They don't want to take 2 or 3 years to develop this thing. They want to win. They want to win it now, this year. You know, in basketball, you never know when your career is going to be over. One bad accident could be the end of your career. So if you're going to win, do it now.
We're seeing both sides still attacking the basket and going after it. Is that what you expect during the course of the year? Or how much freewheeling are we seeing at this point in this scrimmage?
You're seeing a little bit of the guys taking over on their own. They're trying to get into the limited number of sets that the staff has had a chance to put in. As I mentioned earlier in the program, Eric Spoelstra has emphasized defense so much from day one, trying to get these guys up to par, as his team was so strong at the end of last year defensively. He wants this group, which is more talented, to try and get there that much quicker. So perhaps they're behind out-of-bounds plays, side-outs, under-outs, number of sets that they're going to put in. They'll catch up with that. They'll be fine. There are times where players are just going to take off, improvise on their own, but they're good enough to create their own baskets.
Will we see players like Wade and James improvise during the course of the year, and how much leeway should they get late in games with crucial possessions?
Well, what you need is a player on your team when the shot clock is down that can get a shot off, and that's what LeBron James and Dwayne Wade can do, and that's what makes them so dangerous and so tough. Not only their ability to make big shots at the end of the game, but just getting a shot off oftentimes. I'll go back to last year's finals, Game 7, Celtics against the Lakers. There was one stretch there in the fourth quarter of about 3.5, 4 minutes, and then you see the long lead pass, the miss on the lob attempt. There was one stretch, Vince, where neither team could get a clear look at the basket. The defense was so intense. They were so good defensively. They knew everything that the opponent was going to do. It was tough to get a clean look at the front of the rim. That's why you need players that can create their own shots.
So, Mike, if you're Eric Spoelstra, how much veto power do you give to Wade and James in terms of being in that huddle? I mean, what can they say or not say?
That's where you develop your line of communication. You don't just talk to those players within the group, okay, when you're together. You also have your conversations with them alone. Mm-hmm. You pull them in, you talk about practices that have taken place, you talk about the last 3 or 4 games, where we need to improve, what we can do better, what we're getting hurt on right now, and they become your messenger. They hopefully go back and carry your message in the locker room. You see the pen in his hand, the head coach, Eric Spoelstra, will jot down notes, things that he'll need to bring up in practice or talk to the team about when they meet and look at some of this videotape. So your communication with your star players, okay, is so important, because then when you get into the huddle, that's when you allow them to say what you hope, will be an intelligent statement and will be the correct statement at the right time. You have to allow them to have some freedom out there.
Chris Bosh is a wonderful player. Like we said, he was a double-double machine, 5-time All-Star, 10,000 points with the Raptors. In terms of power forwards in the league, was he kind of right guy at the right time when this whole deal went down for free agency? Not to take anything away from his talents. There are a lot of good folks at that position. He just might be the free agent and the functional guy for this situation.
Well, he's a free agent and a guy that, was averaging over 20 points a game and double figures in rebounding. So, it makes him a pretty valuable prospect out there, because you see his ability to play down low in the low post area, or go away from the basket, turn and face up. He can put the ball on the floor, 1 or 2 dribbles, or he can make an 18 to 22-foot jump shot on a regular basis. So, he's a talent that you don't come across very often.
Where do you place him among all-time or this season's power forwards in the league?
You know what? I'm going to let it play out and not worry about where I place him right now, because he is playing in a different situation. He's playing alongside 2 players in James and Wade that either one could be the leading scorer in the league if they wanted to. So what comes his way may be a little bit different than what it was a year ago.
Right guy at the right time. And just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. But look at his numbers. And we said double-double machine for the Toronto Raptors, and he won't face nearly the double teams and nearly the attention that he got while with Toronto. He stepped up, and you know what? He's kind of moved into his role as well, in terms of deferring to the other 2, which I think he should.
He's probably the person that they were counting on from day one, that he would take his ego. It wouldn't be a problem at all. He wouldn't care if his number of shot attempts went down a little bit. And he understood coming in, if I'm going to come in and I've got Wade here and perhaps LeBron joining us, in the near future when he made his decision, he knew what he was getting into as far as my numbers may suffer. If I'm worried about scoring, then maybe I shouldn't be here. If I'm worried about winning a championship, I'm probably in the right place.
Well, in the first half, we've had several LeBron James highlights. 32 seconds to play here in this opening 20-minute half. 45-34. The white team out in front. So the red team making a little bit of a run here, and most of that with LeBron sitting, I might add.
You noticed, yes. He's out of the game, and all of a sudden the red team sees the light that they have a chance to close this down a little bit in the remaining seconds.
LeBron, for his part, tremendous fourth-quarter scorer, too, during the course of the year, and a tremendous road scorer. So taking that game on the road and knowing he's going to have criticism heaped upon him, he may be built for that. He may be built for that.
And that could be part of the reason why he looked at the total picture and said, if I can use my ability and my size and my basketball IQ to be a facilitator, where maybe I don't have to be the main guy that has to do it every night, maybe that's a game for me that I'll enjoy more and will finally produce a championship. 7 years, no championships in Cleveland. Disappointment to LeBron James, disappointment obviously to the people in Northeast Ohio, but now he comes into a situation where there are different weapons that he has here right now.
Mark on your calendar, folks in Northeast Ohio, December 2nd, because that's when the Heat will venture up to Quicken Loans and play in Cleveland, and that should be quite the night. That should be quite the homecoming for the pride of Akron, Ohio, LeBron James.
And also mark on your calendar opening night of the regular season in the NBA, which is October 26th, which we will be showing that game on TNT when Miami just happens to visit Boston on opening night, because that should be pretty nice.
That's right. They'll have Philadelphia on the road, and then Miami's home opener against none other than the Orlando Magic. So Orlando will make the short trip down to South Florida for what promises to be some fireworks early on. Now, how much message sending will take place that early in the season?
Well, as you know, there's been a lot of talk that's been going on lately, and it all hasn't come from players. We've seen Pat Riley have a little bit of something to say, and we've seen Otis Smith, the GM over in Orlando, and Stan Van Gundy, the coach of Orlando, all have some stuff to say as this thing heats up.
48-34, the white team won that first 20-minute session. They'll regroup, and we'll have some new teams for the second 20-minute session. And as we take you to break on Real Training Camp, a look at the big three. Wade, LeBron, Bosh. There's much more coming on the Pan.